Hi everyone and welcome. Jenny Marples here from pushingtherightbuttons.blogspot.com. Back today to share a brand new tutorial with you. I've been inspired by all the people who've been creating lots of lovely projects with Tim Holtz's new 3D Impresslits dies and embossing folders. This one does the whole lot all in one go, super easy to use. This one is Laurel, it's 662729, and I was really inspired particularly by a picture that I saw from Frederica Schleppen. I hope I've said her name correctly there. She created a beautiful wreath using her Laurel die cuts, and I thought, oh, that looks lovely. But then playing around with opaque Crackle, I discovered a quite relatively easy way of doing it so that I could make a really vintage looking laurel leaf like this. So I thought, what better than to show you how I did it. So let's get started. So start off with, I used a piece of mixed media heavy stock. This is Tim Holtz mixed media heavy stock, available through Ranger, and I actually covered the surface with a relatively thin layer. Hold that up so you can kind of see the crackles there that are coming through. Left that to dry overnight, but obviously drying times will depend on whereabouts you live. Once that was nice and dry, that's this paste I've used, the texture paste opaque Crackle. And once that was dry, I was then able to cut out the shapes ready for die cutting and embossing. Let's just show you very quickly how I did that. I simply take one of the laurel leaves. If you haven't got one of these already cut, you can either run a spare piece of paper through your die cutting machine, or actually measure one out if you want to. I just find it's much quicker to do it this way. So I'm just cutting into the heavy stock. Doesn't have to be accurate, just as long as you go around and leave yourself a bit of wiggle room, a bit of a border. Okay, so once I've got that, just trim off the excess over there. Once I've got that, I'm ready to go. So let's pop that out the way. So the next thing I did was to pop it, here's my Impresslits Laurel folder, and I popped the piece of heavy stock inside. I've popped it facing down onto the cutting element of the design. Okay, so you can see there's the embossing side, and this is the cutting side, and also embosses the other way. Placed it down. I ran it through my Sizzix Big Shot. You can use whichever machine you have. Check with Sizzix for the sandwich that you'll need. For the Big Shot, all I needed was one cutting plate, and I used my multi-purpose platform and ran it through, no problem. As I said, I do it a couple of times just to make sure I get that through. So let's take off the excess, and I just use my pokey tool from Tim Holtz just to lift it off at the edge. You'll see comes out of this die absolutely no problem whatsoever, so there's no residue left that will affect the next time you cut. And if I turn it over, you'll see we've got a beautiful piece here where the crackles don't really show at the moment, but they are there. Next stop is to take this is my cat litter tray, and in there, I'm popping that in there simply to protect the rest of my workspace. Now I've got Vintage Photo Distress Spray Stain here, and all I'm going to do is just spray over the surface so that I've covered it all, and leave that to settle for a few seconds. It's quite good if you're doing a job lot of these actually, because you can put them all in the bottom and spray them all at the same time. Going in with a piece of kitchen towel, and I'm just going to dab off the excess. Take that off there. Okay, some of that ink will already have sunk into the cracks, which is just what we need. So now I'm just going to lift that out of the ink, move the tray away, and come back in and just blot over as required. And I'll turn it over because you'll find that there will be ink on the other side too. Okay, let's take all of that away and just spray over my surface very quickly with some water just again to reduce any residue there from the mat. Now you will find that some little pieces of the crackle will come away. Okay, the reason for that is that it's got wet ink going underneath the paste, so it's going to kind of push some of that paste away from the heavy stock and cause it to crackle. But actually that really adds to the effect. If you rub your finger gently over, you'll feel that crackled surface is raised. Now what I would do normally at this point is, maybe, depending on how warm it is, I would shoot off and use my heat tool, and I would just give that a quick blast. But actually it's quite warm today. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the Distress Collage medium. This is the matte version, and I've got the collage tool here, which is perfect for this job. I'm just taking a small amount and I'm going to brush it over the surface. Now what this is going to do will be to seal in that opaque crackle paste. You'll see I'm just moving it around. Okay, just brushing it into the cracks, and it will move the ink, some of the ink around, but not a great deal because you've removed most from the surface. I'm just going to tap that down, then move your medium out of the way. I would always suggest either at that point covering your brush either in a wet baby wipe, or alternatively you can just stick it straight into water, but you will need to remove the medium from your brush to prevent it from going solid. So now just cleaning off the surface. Now this I definitely would either leave to dry or use my heat tool on. So to save time, what I've done is I've actually prepared one in advance, which is now nice and dry. So exactly the same, I haven't done anything different with this, you'll see, but it's just at this point it's now nice and dry and ready. And you'll see there that some of the where some of that crackle has been removed, you'll see we've got some of those lovely the stems are actually showing up with the dark green. So now I'm going in with archival ink over the top, the reason being that it is now a non-porous surface now that we've put the, well, to a certain extent, now that we've put the collage medium over the top, it's going to form a resist. So if you put you can put your distress ink, or your you could certainly put your distress oxides over the top and dry, but obviously be conscious that they are obviously if water goes on them, then they are going to move slightly. I'm going in with, this is fern green. There's any number of archival inks available from Ranger, and they're in big pads and small pads. I just happen to be using the big one, and now all I'm doing is just rubbing over the surface with the pad, just keeping the pad flat and going in and rubbing over, and you'll see that that just highlights all of that beautiful embossing. So if I lift that up there, again now there those leaves have sprung into life. So what do I do with this now? Well, once I've cleaned my mat back off again, just to get rid of any of the archival ink that's gone on top. If you'd like more of an age, by the way, what you can do is take one of your brown archival inks, but I just show you that. You can just go round, maybe hit round the edges, just add in a little more of that brown. I know some people are more passionate about getting some brown onto their projects than others. Absolutely up to you, your project. So finally, so let's see what Frederica did with hers. She made hers into a wreath. So as if by magic, this is simply and purely a piece of Tim Holtz paper stash. This one came from, I think it's from Wildflower. But then all I need to do is arrange. You'll see I've got other laurel leaves already made up, and all I'm now going to do is just arrange those around, and you'll see I've got a beautiful wreath there. And obviously you can add in as many of those as you want. Oh, in fact I've got a spare one there. Let's just move that round. I've actually got 5 done. There we go. So there, we've got a beautiful wreath onto which you can add your bow, your greeting in the middle, or maybe you'd like to do something completely different with it. Hope that's given you an idea for using this 3D Impresslits. As I said, this one is Laurel, and that's this one here. It's Tim Holtz 3D Impresslits 662729. Okay, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. If you have, please make sure you give me a thumbs up and a like for the video. And if you'd like to see more, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, and I'll be back very soon.